Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So in today's video I'm going to show you how to breed discus. So stick around and let's get into it. So to make it easier for you, I'm just going to play all my previous discus that I used to own as a background and then put like audio behind that, so I hope you guys enjoy this little style of video. I have bred discus before, have been very successful of keeping discus and rearing discus, and I'll be sharing you my tips. Okay, so how to breed discus. Firstly, there are 3 different methods that you can choose from, ranging from the most ideal down to a pretty ridiculous method. So I'm going to tell you all 3 of those. Whatever you decide is your opinion, but this is my opinion on how to breed discus. The first way to breed discus is to buy 6 to 8 juvenile discus, grow them up, and then let them pair off naturally. That's the most preferred method to breeding discus. That way you're not forcing the fish into breeding, and generally if you put 2 fish in a tank, a male and a female, they're not always going to breed. So if you buy 6 to 8, that way they can pair off naturally. Also a very slow method, you're more likely to get a proven pair. The second method, which strongly suggests, but not for beginner hobbyists, is buying a proven adult pair of discus. This is what most breeders do when they go to buy discus. The most expensive way to start your breeding system, because a breeding pair can cost, not sure around where you guys are, but in Australia at least $700 to $800 for a breeding pair of discus. So that's not the sort of money you want to be paying as a beginner, and most likely it will say a breeding pair, but you might not get your breeding pair to breed for like a year or so. Keep that in mind. And the last way to get yourself a breeding pair is, and I strongly disagree with this way, is going into a pet shop and picking that fish and then that fish and then just putting them together because they look like a male and a female. This is not going to work unless you're very, very good at determining the sex of the discus, because otherwise you're just going to get 2 males or 2 females and they're not going to breed. So either the first 2 methods are ideal. Beginners, probably the first one, but if you had a bit of money, I'd go with the second option, which I did. Okay, so let's just say you've gone with option 1 or 2 and the juveniles have already paired up and they're big enough to start laying eggs, or your proven pair of discus are ready to lay eggs. What you need, what I used in my breeding setup, was a 3-foot tank with a divider down the middle, and that divider was just a square of PVC pipe wrapped around some shade cloth with some zip ties. That way the water flow could still go through both sides of the tank, but the fish weren't able to see each other. So I put them in a completely bare bottom tank with painted white walls, because if you chose a darker colour, the fry would most likely get lost when they'd hatch and they couldn't find their parents. So that's the tank, white walls and a divider. I also had a DIY breeding PVC pipe which they could also lay on, but I also had the 2 terracotta cones and they bred on me for that one. I kept 2 heaters in the tank. It depends on your type of setup, but I used a 3-foot tank and divided it into 2. I kept the temperature at a minimum of 29 to 30 degrees, nothing lower than that, because discus tend to spark a breeding behaviour when the water's really warm. So if you keep your water fairly warm, that could potentially increase their habit of breeding. For filtration, I use sponge filters, 2 sponge filters, 1 in each side of the tank. That way the fry wouldn't get sucked up into a normal external canister filter or anything like that. Sponge filters, easy, simple, and very reliable. Okay, so once you've got your tank running, or you've got your breeding system up and ready, you've got the preferred temperature, you've got the cones, you've got the dividers, and you've got your sponge filters. Next thing you'll need to know is water quality. To breed discus, you need very clean water quality. So that means siphoning up all their waste whenever you see it, and when I bred discus, I did 50% water change every 2 days. That way, keep the fish's water very clean. Yeah, that was the maintenance I did on the tank. Okay, so now that we've got the temperature, the filtration, the tank, and the divider, and the water quality, now we need methods of stimulating their breeding behavior. So you can either stimulate their breeding behavior by doing frequent water changes, a little bit less or a little bit more. Any change in a fish's home will generally spark some behavior going on. Also feeding them frozen or live food. I fed them some discus mix that I got from the pet shop, otherwise brine shrimp, mitre shrimp, blackworms, bloodworms, you get the idea, some frozen food. And also raising the temperature up by 1 or 2 degrees, that also helped getting them to breed. Okay, so once you've got your first batch of eggs on the cone, what you need to do, what I found success with, is to not do any water changes during the period of the eggs incubating. Otherwise, the parents would think it's another drought and another storm coming through, so they'd eat all the eggs and they'd start preparing for the next batch. That was my experience, but it will change for other people. But that's how I reared the eggs. With no water changes until they were wrigglers. I'd continue doing my water changes. Once the fry had hatched, they'd become free swimming. They would start to swim around on the parent and eating their slime coat as their main food source. You also need to keep in mind the water quality and the frozen foods for the parents to keep their slime coat up. To optimize the fry growth rate, keep warm water, feed them 3 to 4 times a day, and also give them frequent water changes, because clean water, high temperature increase their metabolism and they'll eat a lot more, hence increasing their growth rate. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or anything like that about this video, leave it down below. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.